Okay, let me share my screen. Awesome. Can everyone see this? Yeah, perfect. Okay. Okay, so this is our little presentation on kelp forest ecology. So kelp forests are located in temperate and polar regions, and you can see on the map, just where it's blue, where they're located. They're in upwelling zones, and for those of you that don't know what those are zones where deep cold water rises to the surface, and it's really rich in nutrients. So the nutrients like fertilize the surface waters and just provide a lot of like food for the area, and it encourages the growth of plant life, including phytoplankton and like kelp forests and all of that. So the importance of kelp forests are, one, that it's an ecosystem engineer, which means that it provides habitat for a lot of organisms, and it's 50 times more productive than oceanic phytoplankton, which is a lot. It buffers wave action, absorbs excess nutrients, and it provides algae for commercial harvesting, which is used in medicine. This is a type of carbohydrate that's found in brown seed leaves. Okay, and then the sea surface temperature gradient is also a cool aspect of this. So it's caused by the confluence of colder California and warmer California countercurrents at Santa Cruz Island. And so basically it just means that there's like a warm current and a colder current, and they like meet at Santa Cruz Island. And this increases the biodiversity of the kelp forest ecosystem. And so it drives the diversity of the ecosystem. So an example of this is that the California rocky reef fishes have been distinguished into southern and northern provinces. So like in San Diego, whatever, there's mainly wrasses, blennies, and basses. Moray eels and Garibaldi are more common. And then up by Oregon, there's rockfishes, surf perches, greenlings, tube snout, and pile perches. So here's some cool little pictures of those. And then this is our main species. It's just a giant kelp. So this is, the main species that like hosts all these organisms.
Sweet. And in the kelp forest, there's like a lot of really cool creatures, and we're gonna go over just a couple since like it's hard to choose. But this is the California sheephead. They are sequential hermaphrodites, which means they're an organism that switches from its inborn sex to the opposite sex. And in the case for the sheephead, they switch from female to male. And there's a couple reasons that this occurs. The first is at a certain point in their life, around like 2/3 of their life, they have to switch from female to male. But some of these organisms live within groups, and in these groups there's one male and several females, and in this case a female will transform into a male when either the male dies or leaves, and they'll decide on which one will change from a female to a male based on their jaw sizes. So you can see that in the left photo here, there's two females and they're comparing their jaw sizes. Whoever has the largest jaw size or can open up their mouth the widest will then transform into a male. And they'll transform from like being this kind of like pinkish color to the photo on the right, where they have a black tail and a black head, and they have that funky little bump on the top of their head. So they're pretty sweet fish. And we can go to the next. Cool. This is a Garibaldi. We have a video here. So this is a California state fish. They're actually very territorial. So as you can see in this video, it's coming up and getting really close to the videographer's like face or camera, and they're actually trying to push the videographer out of their territory or space. So many scuba divers and snorkelers that I've talked to actually think they're like really friendly fish because they're like coming up to you and they're like saying hi, but that's like, it's quite the opposite. They're trying to push you out of their territory. So I think that's pretty cool. So yeah, that is a Garibaldi. And And then next we have the giant sea bass. So on the left here is a really awesome photo. This is from 1902. And this is like a giant sea bass that was caught by this dude. So in the past, like in 1902, they used to be a lot more common and they used to be a lot bigger. But due to overfishing at that time, they are now a lot smaller in size. So males are sexually mature between the age of 2 and 4, and females are sexually mature around 4 to 8 years old. And since it takes them such a long time before they become sexually mature, it's hard for this species to be able to like overcome overfishing. So that's why even today, they're still not very common and they're still not as big as they used to be because of this overfishing from the past. Sorry, I'm just reading the chat. Females produce really large quantities of eggs and they're fertilized by males when they're released. Here's a really cool video of someone getting really close to a giant sea bass, which is awesome since they're a lot more rare in the habitat. And lastly, giant sea bass are apex predators in the kelp forest ecosystem and feed on fish, crustaceans, squid, small sharks, and rays. They're generally slow moving. They're pretty curious, which is probably why they're really easy to catch. And they suck in prey to their like mouths by abruptly opening their jaws and creating like a strong vacuum. So yeah, that is a giant sea bass. Next, we'll talk about one of the, or if not the most important species within the kelp forest, which is the sea otter. So sea otters are considered a keystone species. If you all haven't heard of a keystone species, a keystone is the stone at the top of an archway. It's like the most important one because if you take it out, the entire archway will collapse. So that's pretty much what the sea otter is within its environment. Sea otters, if taken out of the environment, oh, look at Hallie's sea otter. We got that aquarium of the Pacific when we went. So cute. It's even holding a sea urchin. So sea otters are keystone species. If we take them out of the environment, then the entire ecosystem will collapse. And that's because of this very important food web I have on the page right here. So sea otters' favorite snack are sea urchins, and sea urchins eat kelp. When we take sea otters out of their habitat, the sea urchin population will increase by a lot, which makes sense. They don't have any predators. And then the sea urchins will start eating away at all of the kelp. And they'll start eating the kelp holdfast, which means it's like the area that holds the kelp to the bottom of the ocean. So then all the kelp will pretty much like fly away or float away because it doesn't have anything holding it to the bottom. And then there will be no kelp. So then there's no homes for the creatures, there's no habitats, there's no food for the animals there, and it pretty much decimates the entire ecosystem. So that's why sea otters are so important and they're keystone species. We can go to the next slide. Sadly, in history from about 1741 to 1911, sea otters it was really big to hunt sea otters. And this makes sense because sea otters have really thick fur. And about a cubic inch of a sea otter's fur, it's enough for an entire German Shepherd. Like they have so much fur, and it makes sense. They need to stay warm and they want to stay dry within their habitat. But people really liked this because it kept the people warm. So they were hunted practically to extinction. They were once from the coast of Japan all the way down to Baja, California, as you can see in this picture, through Alaska. But now we can only find them on like some Alaskan islands and within Monterey. Luckily, we stopped hunting them in 1911, and they've been able to like grow over time since then. And now we can see them like a little bit past Monterey. But yeah, thank you for listening to our presentation, and we can thank sea otters for helping out the kelp forest.
A little round of applause for Charlotte and Dina. thank you again for presenting for the two of you. If anyone here or if anyone that's watching the recording would like us to do more of those kinds of presentations, we have a few other subjects kind of lined up, and we all do relatively different things, and so it's pretty easy for us to kind of just throw something together as well. It's pretty fun for us, and it's also fun for you guys, so yeah, I hope you guys like that. The kelp forest one is always like a people pleaser, just because it's just pictures of cute animals and fish, which I mentioned this in the chat, but I don't know if Melissa is still here, but they have a lot of these same animals like the sea bass and the Garibaldis and stuff down at the Science Center. They have a whole kelp forest exhibit, so that's pretty cool. And yeah, and now we're gonna get into kind of the meat of everything. We are going to get into elections, kind of mainly how the proceedings are going to work, kind of restrictions that we have on that, as well as all the different positions open and kind of their general responsibilities. And yeah, I'm just gonna get started and share my screen. Alrighty. And then I'm gonna, here we go. Alrighty, so elections. Again, if anyone is unaware, they're happening in about 2 weeks from now. And so we're giving everyone about 2 weeks to kind of think about positions that they'd like to apply for the non-elected positions, and positions they'd like to nominate themselves for the elected positions. It will be week 9, Tuesday at 6 p.m. And it will be on Zoom as well, just to make it more accessible for people who might not be able to make an in-person meeting. And some important information that we have on the elections for this year is during the elections itself, everyone will have 1 minute to discuss why they're a good candidate for this position. Try to have something prepared if you're interested in running, or you can also wing it. It's up to you. But we will be voting through Google Forms after all of the candidates speak for a given position. So there's 6 elected positions. So everyone running for the chair will go first, and then and as soon as all the candidates for that position run, then we will do the voting for that one before we start the next one, which is the co-chair. You can self-nominate, so you will be self-nominating yourself for these positions, and you can nominate yourself for as many or as few positions as you'd like. And the way this kind of works is we will be starting with the highest position of the chair and then kind of work our way down from there as the elections go on. So like I mentioned earlier, the chair will go first. So candidates for the chair will all go first. We will give everyone a few minutes to vote. The results of that vote will be announced before even the next person starts. And so we kind of go in like sequential order from like my position all the way down to the next. If you're unable to make it to the elections themselves, but would like to run for a position, you can record your speech, which will be 1 minute, and we will play it at the elections, kind of screen sharing, and then play it from there. The last restriction is if you're a senior, and specifically if you're graduating before June of 2022, so if you will not be able to run. And this is just to ensure that there's a lot more fresh individuals on the board, as everyone on the board, or most people on the board right now, do not qualify for this. But if you are a 4th year and you are graduating, after this year, say you're doing a full 5th year or even part of a 5th year, then you're eligible to run. And yeah, does that kind of make sense? If there are any questions, feel free to throw them up in the chat. I'll keep monitoring that. Alrighty. And then now kind of to get into all the different positions available and what they kind of all do. First up, we have the chair. And so currently that is me, Marcus. And the chair's main responsibilities are presiding over and setting agendas for all the meetings. So I'm the one that organizes a lot of our meetings between the board and as well as the general meetings. The chair will also kind of fill vacancies in elective and appointive positions. So basically this means that if there's an empty position or there's an unfilled position, they kind of take on the responsibilities of that role, kind of just to kind of fill the gap of whatever's happening in the board. The chair also acts as the official representative of ORCA. So for things like the Student Leadership Council, that's typically my job, as well as, kind of being the face for a lot of inter-organization interactions. I also do troubleshoot and generally just troubleshoot and picks up the slack in any projects and kind of has overarching vision for a lot of the projects that we do. Next up, we have the co-chair. It's pretty simple. They perform the duties of the president or the chair in their absence or when they are unable to do so. Whether this means that they're ill or if they're just too busy to kind of take on all the responsibilities, as I mentioned earlier, the co-chair kind of is the secondary in that. And they will be working very closely together. And the current co-chair is Charlotte Koska, who you just heard her speak. I'm mentioning all the current or maybe former positions so that if you are interested in their roles and kind of their experience, you may reach out to them over GroupMe or over text, just to kind of ask to be interested if you're interested in that position. Yeah, and next up, the records chair. Currently that is Dina Giotas, and Gina, you just heard Dina do her part of the first half of the presentation. The records chair main duties involve maintaining written records for the meetings. So things like taking notes at the board meeting, helping us, kind of collect all of our thoughts and keep them in writing, as well as maintaining any written records of our committee decisions if we do make a big committee decision, as well as any activities. So things like the beach cleanup and writing like the guidelines for that as well. And next up, we have the finance or financial chair, which currently that is Paco Ung. I don't believe he's able to make it to this meeting, but some of you might have met him during the beach cleanup. Basically, they're responsible for all of our financial transactions. They will be the one whose name will go on a lot of the funding applications, as well as the club bank account and the club card. Although I think right now that's me, but that's just because of other reasons. And so basically anything that we spend money on or anything that budget wise would have to go through either Paco or someone like me, like the chair. And then next up, we have the programs chair, and that was previously Lily Khosravi. She has graduated since being in this position. And her position's a little unique to organizations and student organizations, but her main role was providing routine progress reports at meetings. So kind of collecting everyone's thoughts from the last and everyone's thoughts and everyone's tasks from the last meeting, saying who did what, who was not able to do what, and kind of giving us a full progress report on that. As well as she assists in managing the projects and organization timelines. So helping us figure out deadlines, when are good things to send things out, when is a good time to, contact this person or put together this project. And she will work closely with the committee chairs, which I'll go into a little bit later. And lastly, this is the last position for the elected positions, and that is the outreach chair. Currently, that is Kelsey Warren, and her main job was to coordinate projects with relevant on-campus events and usually organizations or departments. So basically acting as outreach, so she's reaching out to them, emailing them and stuff like that, kind of on our behalf, as well as publishing the routine newsletter to the general members, as well as maintaining communication with organizations external to UCLA. And that basically just means she's the one that's sending out a lot of these emails that you might get either from the newsletter, or maybe if you went to the beach cleanup, she's the one sending out the guidelines as well. Email person and assist with that. And moving into the appointed positions, and so these positions are applied to. There's a separate application form for this, separate from the nominations, and we'll release both at the same time. The application for these following positions will close after the elections. So it also gives people who may have not gotten the position that they wanted, or may have not gotten a position to apply for these positions after elections and after finding out. So We have the social media chairs, and there are typically two of these where one's responsibility is, so they kind of share the responsibility, but we have two just because it is a lot of work for social media sometimes, but is to maintain the Orca social media and the website. Currently that is Hallie Cato and Lauren Mann. Hallie is here right now. So again, if anyone has any questions on that, please feel free to throw it up in the chat. And they do a lot of the social media, creating the graphics, designing a lot of the graphics that we use and posting them as well. Yeah. And lastly, last but not least, we have the committee chairs. And so there is going to be one for the spring and one for the winter. So previously, last year's winter chair was Kate Minden, who is here right now. And last year's spring committee chair was Jim Brown. He has since graduated. You might have seen him at our tabling event at Enormous Activities Fair because we roped him into helping us. But basically the committee chairs are positions where your main commitment is really only for that one quarter, and you'll be doing a lot of work for that one quarter. And the idea with Orca is that we kind of switch between different topics and events kind of by the quarter. So last year, I think for the winter, we did ocean acidification, kind of focusing our events around that. And for the spring, we did environmental policy and specifically Biden's recent election and kind of how that relates to the environment. And kind of proposes different topics, proposes different event ideas to the board members, and kind of works with the board in kind of seeing a lot of these things through. They will work closely with the programs chair. And the programs chair is kind of the person that helps them set their deadline and kind of keeps them on top of things. And that's also a little bit on the chair's role. But basically the committee chairs have a lot of freedom to kind of really do what they would like to do. And this position is also applied to and not elected for. Alrighty, and that concludes all of the different positions and kind of generally what they do. Are there any questions at all? Feel free to unmute yourself. And you can also throw a question up in the chat. I will have to repeat the question though, if it's in the chat, and just so the people who are listening to the recording can listen to the same question. Anything at all?
What if someone wants to be involved, but they don't get any of these positions? How can they be involved?
That is a great question. And so that brings me into my next slide. So I have an honorable mentions. So we did, last year we did have 3 individuals that were kind of on the board, kind of assisting us with getting stuff off the ground, basically. Because we did start last year, and they've been very helpful in just either having us bounce ideas off them, being there to actually run things through and like see things through for us. And that is Nikki Agarwal, Kobe Talma, and Nick Yoshioka. I believe Nick and Nikki are here. And so if you end up not getting a position at all, or if you just maybe are too busy and you aren't able to commit to that, please have a conversation with either us or with whoever the new board's going to be. And you can even just join on the board meetings. And the idea is that you just join on the board meetings, help assist with the planning if you would like. And I've personally found that to work quite well. I really enjoyed having the 3 of them kind of be there to help whenever they are able to provide that. And yeah, and so we just call them board members or like advisors to the board. And so, yeah. Any other questions? Shout out to Nikki and Nick who are here right now. Anyways, for the elections and general transfer of anything over on the board, all the elected positions are open. Applications to the applied positions will close after elections, as I mentioned earlier. And like I said, all positions open. We are all sadly graduating currently on the 6 elected positions, and I believe also for the applied positions as well. We are all graduating this year. And the reason why we were having elections so early on in the year is just because so it's just so that a lot of us who will be graduating, either I think for Dina in the winter and for someone like me and Charlotte and Hallie, I believe in the spring, hopefully, fingers crossed. We will just be around to assist and guide the new board. I have personally taken on that commitment to be around and help assist with advising the board, kind of making sure that they get their bearings and get their feet planted on the ground safely before kind of graduating, and they can kind of take this on. And if they would like to do elections again next fall, that's also great. If they would like to take on something new, that's also fine. But at least just for the winter and the spring until I graduate, they can have that support that, you know, Nikki, Kobe, and Nick were able to provide us, just as like extra hands on board. And yeah, any last questions? I'm gonna stop screen sharing because I've only been staring at Charlotte's face for some reason for the whole time, the entire presentation. But yeah, any last questions? Oh, Hallie, could you copy and paste what I said in the Slack into the chat really quick? So Hallie's gonna send the links for the nomination form. So that's the chair, co-chair, records chair, finance chair, programs chair, and outreach chair positions in the chat, as well as the application form for the social media chairs and committee chairs as well. We will send this out multiple times through the GroupMe, on emails, as well as throwing it up on the social media as well, just to kind of get it out there. If Hallie isn't able to do it, anyone else on the board, please just help out.
I'm good. It just takes like 7 years to load. Hold on.
You're fine. The application for the non-elected positions does include a small writing section. We emphasize you to stay within our word limit if possible, just to make it easier for us to kind of sift through a lot of those applications. And it's not long at all. It's really just asking, why would you feel like you're a good fit? You know, I think we had one fun question that's like, give us an obscure ocean fact that nobody else would know, just to kind of make it fun, right? And we want to emphasize that like, this is a really fun position to be in. I've personally enjoyed it over the last year, and I look forward to still working with the new board and helping them out as the year goes on. My own personal wish is for this to kind of extend beyond my year, our year, the years after, and just set us up for the future. I think we've done really great stuff. Oh, thanks, Dina. And I can't thank the current board enough for kind of sticking it out with me, kind of like on this whole trip. And, you know, we're not done yet. We still have some stuff to do. We will still be around. We're not dying. We're not like dead. We won't be dead. But yeah, that's just kind of my spiel. And and anyone else on the board, feel free to speak to like what the commitment was like for you in terms of like difficulty, time commitment. We try to make it like it's not a huge commitment at all. And that's kind of evident in how we treat the general members. The general members are just people who show up to events if they so choose, right? We are just doing this for you guys, and it's like meant to be an experience for you guys to go to these things if you would like. But I'm going to shut up now because I've been talking for a long time. But if anyone else on the board has anything to say, by all means, please go ahead.
Oh, I just want to say, like, in terms of like classes and meeting like people in the same field as you and like in the same major, I really had zero of that until joining Orca, especially board. And now I'm going to French Polynesia with what, 2-3 members of our board. So that'll be a very good time. 3 members. Yeah. So that'd be really fun. I highly recommend. And if you run for social chair, I already made the website. So all you have to do is just update it.
Yeah, honestly, shout out to Hallie. She did a lot of heavy lifting on the website back in the day. So yeah. Charlotte, do you want to say anything at all, or?
No, I had a great time. Everyone on the board is so fun. And even though no one's going to be the same, I know that the board is going to stay fun because that's just like the environment that Orca creates. So, and I will be sticking around too with Marcus to help out with everyone. I don't really want to leave Orca, so I'll be here. Yeah, that's all I really have to say.
Alrighty, I'm going to stop recording. And yeah.